which is the year of war in Ukraine. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to this conference. I'm a vice president of the Association of Animal Welfare Organizations of Ukraine that includes more than 50 animal protection organizations from all the regions of Ukraine. The topic of my report today is the influence of full-scale war on animal well-being in Ukraine and legislative approach and regulations to this issue. Could you please switch screen sharing?
В Україні зоозахисні ініціативи почали запроваджувати.
In Ukraine, animal protection initiatives have been launched since 1960s, and only in 2006 the law of Ukraine was adopted on protecting animals from abuse, and now this is the basic law in the field of animal protection. And in 2012, the Ukrainian parliament ratified the European Convention on protection of domestic animals. Later, there were some other legislative achievements. For example, in 2017, the law was passed, and according to it, the maximum punishment for abuse of animals is 8 years of imprisonment. This is the toughest punishment for cruelty, for violence against animals. In the other countries, there are very huge fines, there are some other types of punishments, but imprisonment up to 8 years is only in Ukraine, and this is the toughest one. In 2021, the Association of Animal Welfare Organizations of Ukraine took lots of efforts in order to ban euthanasia as a method to regulate the number of homeless animals. Banning foie gras production, banning bagging with animals, banning special chains which are very short, banning using animals as awards, and also banning living animals in the car when the outside temperature is higher than 25 and lower than +5 degrees. Also, the propaganda of abuse against animals has become a criminal offense, and actually the punishment is the same as for killing animals. Also, it is important that immediately the violent case is identified, the animal is taken away from the person. Also, the criminal liability now starts at the age of 14. It's very important to address the cases when such crimes are committed against the minors in order to prevent violence-based crimes against people in future. Now, I would like to mention how full-scale war influenced the animal field. Since February, the animal protection area actually came back about 10 years ago. Lots of legislation initiatives have been stopped, have been terminated or suspended. All our plans have failed. Lots of animals were left neglected because people were trying to escape from shellings, and lots of animals were left unattended. Some people just left their animals locked in the rooms, in the flats, in the houses without water and food, and the animals didn't have any chance for survival. Here you see the photos of animals during the full-scale war. Here is a particular case. This is the dead cat. The owners left him alone in the apartment without food or water. He was found by rescuers in a month, and he died from thirst and lack of food, and he was just lying on the child's bed. Therefore, the initiative was launched to regulate the case that the policemen were able to enter the houses of those people who left these animals locked. And actually there were cases when the animals was identified as locked in the house, but the policemen were not able to enter the flat, stating that there were no regular legislation provision about it. And we, together with Yulia Ovchinnikova, the People Deputies of Ukraine, launched this initiative on drafting the corresponding law. Also, the owners of the animals had some issues regarding entering the shelters during the air alerts. They were just not allowed to enter the shelters with their animals. And our association also raised the issue of regulating on the legislative level the issue of entering the bomb shelters with animals. So in cooperation with you animals, we developed this draft law, and now it is at the stage of registration. Also, another example of our successful work on legislation is our work on limiting usage of fireworks. It has already passed the first reading, so there will be some restrictions on using very noisy fireworks, uh, because actually when these are public holidays, uh, it was awful for the animal owners because animals were frightened of the sounds of explosions and very often ran away, and even there were some lethal cases. And actually, the biggest problem during the full-scale war in Ukraine is providing assistance to animals who stay in the occupied areas. During this time, our association helped more than 60 cities of Ukraine. Uh, Sometimes these were one-time assistance packages, and there are also regular projects. There are lots of territories which are still occupied or under shelling, and the shelters do not have any chance to survive, but for our assistance. But even our assistance is actually limited in coming to the end. I would like to mention a couple of words about our plans for the future. Our key tactical task of our association, but I mean all the volunteers of Ukraine, is regulating the number of homeless stray dogs and cats in the streets. Our aim is not only to cover big cities where there are lots of vet clinics and lots of possibilities of working with them, but also cover small settlements and remote settlements. Uh, to go to those places where neutering will be possible is impossible right now. But I also would like to say that the key strategic goal of our association is to stop the situation where animal is recognized as a thing, and recognizing the animal rights and enshrining these rights in the Constitution of Ukraine. There are also some other goals: banning exploiting animals in the circus, banning delphinariums, introducing special profession as the animal lawyer, and there are a number of draft laws registered in the Parliament on the topics I have just described. Thank you for your attention. I do hope that after our victory, we shall be able to implement all our plans. We hope for your support and assistance. I would like to express our gratitude to the organization Nature Watch Foundation for invitation to present our presentation at this conference. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. In order to give a question, please write it in the chat.
Так, у нас були, здається, ага. Секундочку, у нас, здається, були питання. Щодо... Угу. От питання, що зараз з законами такими, як 5...
The question is, what about the law 5409? Are they invalid laws. They are registered at the parliament right now, but unfortunately they have been suspended because, well, this issue is not very topical during the full-scale war. I'm talking about not being topical for the People's Deputies of Ukraine. Definitely now they think about the security of the country, the safety of people. Due to full-scale invasion, lots of territories are now occupied. People need help. Therefore, this draft law 5409, it's actually about banning exploiting animals in the circus. So now this draft law is suspended, but we do hope that owing to the efforts of the armed forces of Ukraine that liberate now Ukrainian territories, we do hope that it will be able to come back to the discussion of this issue in the parliament, and we do hope that it will be considered in the parliament at least in the first reading.
Дякую дуже.
Thank you.
Щодо нових законів, які
Talking about new laws,
пропонуються
new
уряду.
draft laws which are offered to the government. So is the government cooperative? Or now everybody is saying that now it's war and animals are less important? Now we cooperate with the government regarding bylaws, but the laws are passed by the parliament, and we cooperate with the People's Deputies of Ukraine regarding new draft laws, and we also cooperate with the government. Definitely now we try to develop the regulation on temporary taking away animals when we're talking about administrative offenses. For example, in case the violence against animal is identified, the policeman will have the procedure how they can take away the animal from the owner till the decision of the court. Just quite recently, we have adopted the special procedure on regulating the population of homeless animals. So we do cooperate with the government, probably not in a very intensive way right now, because we understand that they have lots of other pressing issues. And one more question. What can international organizations do to help animals? First of all, we need assistance regarding medications and food, particularly in the occupied territories. We have the possibility to bring food and medications there, and also the liberated territories. Where people are left unemployed and they do need pet food and medications. And also we need assistance with sterilization of animals, particularly the funding for these surgeries. I know that these surgeries take place. The volunteers bring animals for these procedures, and for example, the people who cannot pay for their own pets have a chance to do it. We should understand that stray animals, homeless animals, sometimes are previously owned animals because the owners didn't sterilize their animals, and then they bring more animals, etc., etc. So it's really important to ensure free sterilization not only of homeless animals but also of those animals whose owners cannot afford it. So these are primary issues we face right now. Could you please tell us whether international organizations can help from legal point of view, for example, lobbying, promoting certain laws? So I'm talking about legal support. Yes, legal support will be very valuable for us. It is really good if we share experience with each other. In certain issues, international community not only European but international community is definitely ahead of Ukraine. In some issues, Ukraine has advanced a bit more, and we can share our experience. It will be really good if we had the chance to share our experience. But definitely, we have written, if you can write to the Parliament of Ukraine supporting certain legislative initiatives or certain bylaws, it will be really good.
Дякую дуже. І ще питання
And
щодо
one more question.
актуальне питання щодо вивезення тварин за кордон.
It's about actually taking animals abroad.
Є багато інформації, що
We have the information that there are some legal issues people face when they try to go abroad with their animals. Do you know about these challenges and do you know how to resolve them? Yes. At the beginning of war, it was possible to go abroad with animals, and even these animals were not vaccinated, and it was okay. Now, the number of animals is limited up to 5 animals per person, and there should be definitely vaccination. And there are lots of neglected animals. There are lots of animals who should be placed in shelters. Because in Ukraine, unfortunately, there are no municipal shelters, there are private shelters which are overcrowded, they are overloaded with animals, even before the beginning of war. But now, due to this situation, when lots of animals are left without owners, our private shelters already cannot cover all the animals. So we do face the need to send these animals to the shelters abroad. And actually, once again, it should be regulated here in Ukraine. In Ukraine, it's okay because we can we can send as many animals as possible, but actually it should be regulated at the level of the foreign countries that accepts these animals. There is a question in the chat. Dear Marina, do you plan any legislation on the so-called farms of breeding cats and dogs? They that look similar like pedigree cats and dogs, and the abuse of such animals. Just the day before yesterday, we had a complaint that Maltese dogs and York dogs are kept in very small cages in awful condition. Well, the animals are in awful conditions, as if they were just used to clean the floors. They are dirty, they are hungry, the fur is in very bad condition. This is a huge problem, actually. When we submitted the draft law 2351 last year, we actually submitted it in 2019. And in that edition, there was a ban on just breeding cats and dogs outside or beyond, not in the special feline or canine organizations. But the deputies took away this norm from that law. And definitely this issue should be regulated. And definitely we should try to avoid the situations of such farms. The animals should be bred only on permission of special feline or canine clubs and organizations. This is a painful issue. We try to combat it, but it's a bit difficult. And one more question. Sometimes in local chats, we can see the situation that if something happens, we should not give calls to the police because, well, police won't be able to address it anyway. Please tell us whether we can disturb the police with these issues. Yes, definitely. If we are talking about the life of the animals, you should give a call to the police. But, for example, if it is something less serious, for example,
власник
how the
вигулює тварину.
owner, for example, is walking the dog. For the law to be implemented and enforced, there should be a system of punishment. If you ban something, and if a person knows that there will be no punishment if he or she violates this ban, this prohibition, she will just ignore it. So if a person has some duties and these duties are not performed, you have to somehow influence this person. For example, a person cannot just do anything. You can make an oral remark regarding violating the walking norms. Well, but if a person is decent, it will not this person will not violate the norms. So it's really important to have effective and efficient punishment. So you should call the police. If in the duties of the police it is written that they have to respond to these issues, it is okay that you disturb the police in such cases. This is one of their duties to help us build the legal law-based state. It's not enough to have just laws. The laws should be enforced. For the laws to be enforced, one should have a system, and police is part of this system. And we are paying taxes for the police to work. They get their salaries, they have their duties, and we can demand that they respond to such situations. Definitely give calls to the police. And one more question about evacuating animals from closed or locked premises. So could you give more details? What rights do we have as citizens in case we find out that an animal is locked somewhere? So what should we do? What steps should we take? Where should we go? And what kind of rights do we have to protect this animal? The first thing you should do is call the police, because there are different cases. For example, it's in Kharkiv. The animal is locked. There is a call to the animal protection organization about the animal, a dog being locked in the flat, and the dog is barking and almost already lost its voice because of this barking, and there is no owner for more than a week. They called the police. The police refused to break into the house, etc. But the animal protection volunteers insisted, and the police called the emergency services and the utility services. They opened the door and they saw that the owner, the lady, is lying on the floor, and she was alive. So they called the ambulance and managed to provide medical aid to this lady. So they saved her, just insisting on breaking into this flat. But there were cases that the animal is barking or mewing if it is a cat, but the police does not want to open the door, and later when an owner who is there actually died. So if the animal is barking or mewing, it doesn't mean that the animal is there alone. It may be the case that the owner is there as well, but needs assistance. It's not all, sometimes the owner actually may be in need of help. And there is another situation when you just neglect, when you intentionally leave the animals without any care. And this is already Article 299 according to the Criminal Code of Ukraine, and it is a crime. And the police is just obliged to respond to this situation, to initiate criminal proceedings, to break in and into the premises, and to save the animal. So to prevent criminal offense. So when animal is actually asking for help, it is still possible to save it and to avoid the case of abuse of animals. So you should call the police and explain to them that they are obliged to save the animal, and it may be even the case that they save the life of the owner of the animal. And there is one more. A question from Katerina, public organization Lada Bakhmut. Our team has taken 13 small dogs in very bad condition from the so-called black farm, and there is the video of the condition of the dog. The owner actually wrote the application to the police, and we want to actually use Article 299 against her. Article 299 is about when there is a dead animal or when the animal is beaten, etc. We have administrative responsibility when the animal actually was tortured, but still animal is alive. And Article 299 is when we have, for example, injuries or when the animal died because of maltreatment. So probably you can give more details of what was mentioned in the application of the owner, that you have stolen animals from her or what. So if you need specific legal support in this case, probably I can give my phone number in the chat. You would give me a call, we shall communicate, and I'll just give you legal advice what you can do in this case. Please, this is my phone number. Give me a call, please, and we shall discuss some specific details. 2 dogs have died, and we have a document. Have you been taking away these dogs in the presence of policemen? It's really important to establish the connection between the death of these dogs and the actions of the owner. Well, just give me a call and we shall discuss this issue in details. There are very small nuances which we have to clarify.